Sergey angrily tapped on the gas pedal. The trip had turned out to be so long that he told his wife over the phone, "Karina, I've forgotten what you look like." She responded with laughter, saying, "Once you arrive, you'll remember immediately. Besides, how could you forget after living together for 10 whole years? It's about time you remember." Karina burst into laughter while Sergey's heart twisted in his chest because he missed her terribly. "Well, this time I'll stay home a little longer. They're putting the car in for repairs, which is good. I've missed you too," he said. Sergey was supposed to return in a week, but a fortuitous side load came along. Then, a comrade with a cargo appeared on the road, and they transferred the load to Sergey, who raced to the end of the world because of pressing deadlines and the hefty penalty that would leave them without pay for 2 months. He was asked to wait for 3 days there, and then they found another highly profitable load, again not in the direction of home. Sergey loved the road, and this stroke of luck meant they could finally afford the repairs Karina had been talking about more and more often. They had been married for 10 years, but their feelings hadn't diminished one bit, although their family almost fell apart 2 years ago. It was on a beautiful day when Sergey received a divorce summons. He thought it was some kind of mistake and went to share his indignation with Karina, but she lowered her gaze and said, "I filed for divorce." Sergey dropped the paper from his hands. "Why? How? I don't understand anything," he said. And Karina burst into tears, saying, "Sergey, you're good. You're wonderful. I love you very much, but I'm not worthy of you. You'll meet a better woman who will definitely have a child for you." He slowly sat down on the couch. "So that's how it is. You decided on your own, without asking anyone. Well, since you want it that way, then let's get a divorce." He grabbed his jacket and rushed out onto the street. He wandered the streets for a long time and only returned home at night. He turned on the lights in the kitchen and flinched. Karina was sitting at the table. Her face was swollen from tears, and overall she looked so miserable that Sergey couldn't stay angry anymore. He sat down opposite her. "I want you to listen to me. No, child. I don't need one without you. Got it? I want you to be by my side always, forever. I love you, and I really hope nothing like this happens in our family again," he said. Karina burst into tears once again and threw herself onto his neck. "I was so scared of having to live without you," she said. Meanwhile, 3 years after their wedding, Karina became ill and obsessed with having children. Sergey couldn't understand why she was so fixated. They hadn't been together for long, but his wife seemed to have gone mad. She rushed from one doctor to another, dragging him along. All the doctors said the same thing. Everything was fine, just wait. But Karina cried and went to search for another clinic. Then, it seemed like she had come to terms with it, or so Sergey thought. It turned out he didn't understand. Why nothing worked out for them, he couldn't fathom. But he decided that when the time came, it would happen. And if it didn't, well, then it wasn't meant to be, of course. He wanted children but didn't intend to turn it into a catastrophe. Home, he thought. He only made it in the evening. A delicious smell wafted from the hallway, and Sergey was sure it came from their apartment. He didn't even have time to open the door. It swung open by itself, and Karina hung on his neck with a shriek of joy. The man breathed in the familiar scent of his wife and thought about how incredibly happy he was because no one else was as unhappy. For 2 days straight, they didn't leave the house. But on the 3rd day, Karina was getting ready to go somewhere. "Where are you going?" "Oh, Sergey, all dressed up. You made plans for the sauna with your friends a long time ago. It's inconvenient to cancel," she said. Sergey laughed. "Do you remember how you used to dislike the sauna before? You always said, it's hot there are people." That was true in the city, with everyone having their own bath or shower. But Sergey really enjoyed going to the sauna, not so much for bathing, but for steaming. At first, Karina categorically refused to join him. Eventually, he managed to convince her once. It wouldn't be accurate to say that the young wife was thrilled, but it did change her a little. From time to time, she agreed to accompany Sergei. Well, what do you know, thought Sergei, and here she's even going without him. Sergei stretched. Well, go ahead. I think I'll take a nap. I can't catch up on sleep after the journey. Karina pecked him on the cheek. Rest, my dear. I won't be long. When he woke up, Karina was already bustling in the kitchen. Her face was flushed, clearly from the sauna. You're positively glowing, he said. I need to get out of the house somehow. I had plans. Of course, you could go tomorrow, she replied. All right, go tomorrow then. Just don't leave a permanent dent on the couch, Sergei said, laughing. Fine, since you're so concerned about the couch, I'll go shopping tomorrow morning for all the renovation supplies, and then we can go to the sauna. Karina smiled in response. So you'll go steam yourself, not wash, to start the renovation all fresh and clean, right? They had dinner, and Karina went to bed, saying she was tired. He covered her with a blanket and stepped out. After the sauna, he was indeed tired and decided to watch a movie. Several days had passed, and the renovation was in full swing. Karina announced that she was going to the sauna again, which surprised Sergei. But you just went recently, he exclaimed. Sergei, I think it's the dust, the whitewash, the glue. They've just gotten into me. Only the sauna can help, she said. Don't worry, Katya will accompany me, so I won't be alone. Well, go ahead, take a look, don't spend too long there. All right, darling, Karina said and hurried away. Sergei dropped his tools. What was happening with her? She used to dislike the sauna, and now she seemed to love it. It was strange. Suddenly, a thought occurred to him. Well, anything is possible. After all, doctors don't say who might have issues. It's not about Karina, as they strangely assume, but about me. So it's natural that Karina might try to conceive with someone else. Sergei found it hard to breathe. How could this be? He shook his head. No, it's nonsense. It couldn't be true. He stood up. It's simple. Now he'll also go to the sauna, and if he sees her there, he'll say she provoked him, and he decided to wash away the construction dust as well. Gathering himself quickly, he rushed out onto the street. He paused. Well, there are 2 saunas in town. Which one could Karina have gone to? One is very old, from the Soviet era. The other one is modern, all equipped, but it's private. The price difference isn't significant, but the steam rooms are different. He decisively walked along the street. As he walked, he remembered that the old sauna would be on the way to the new one. I'll just stop by, he thought. The old sauna was closed for repairs. Judging by its condition, it had been closed for more than one day. But everything worked out as he thought. Karina was in the new sauna. He continued walking. It wasn't too far, just 2 intersections. Someone called out to Sergei. He turned and froze. It was Katya, his wife's friend, who was supposed to be at the sauna. Katya? He said, surprised. The woman laughed. You look so astonished, as if you've seen a ghost. No, it's just me. Where are you headed? Not to the sauna, Sergei replied. Yes, I decided to try a new sauna broom. Lucky you, while I hadn't been to the sauna in ages, as if I don't have time for anything. All right, I'll run. Say hi to Karina. I'll pass along your regards, Katya said and went on her way. Katya ran off, and Sergei stood there for a while longer. But now the happy family life had come to an end, and he could return home. What was the point of going to the sauna now? What if he saw something there that he couldn't forgive? Karina couldn't control herself and would do something foolish, but she wasn't really to blame. Everyone wants complete happiness, and it can't be complete without children. He resolutely headed forward, but no, he had to see everything. He had to tell Karina that he didn't blame her for anything, that he would file for divorce and free her from his presence. Sergei reached the sauna in a few minutes. He didn't want to think about anything anymore. He just wanted to get it over with. It was disappointing, of course, that it turned out like this. Couldn't he deserve a simple conversation without deceit? Sergei forcefully pushed open the vestibule door. It was quiet, strangely quiet, as if today wasn't a working day. He walked towards the changing room door. There was a notice on the door stating that the sauna was closed for visitors today. Perplexed, he turned to the woman who came out of a nearby door. How could it be closed? It should be open. It can be open, but it's not mandatory. I mean, it is, of course, open, but not for everyone, the woman said, smiling. Well, to some extent. She barely finished her sentence when the changing room door swung open, and children poured out with shouts and laughter. Sergei hurried and looked at the blushing little ones, while the woman handed out jackets to them. Mikhailovna, come by later, we'll have a chat while the next group arrives. He turned around at the familiar voice and locked eyes with Karina. Sergei, what are you doing here? She asked, and he stood there himself, not understanding what he was doing there. I also came to the sauna and met Katya, who was supposed to be with you. What's going on? Sergei said. Why are you deceiving me? Let's go, I'll explain everything to you, he said, pulling her along. Sergei had no choice but to follow her. They entered a small room with a table and 2 sofas. I see you know everything. Karina quickly glanced at him. Sergei, don't say things you'll regret later. You've invented some nonsense. Sit down, Sergei, she said. Sergei sat down. He didn't understand anything, and it was getting frightening. His heart ached, and he couldn't breathe. Sergei somehow came to the sauna and met a familiar woman there. She works at an orphanage and told him about a major breakdown they had there. They were replacing the pipes, and the water was shut off, so they had food delivered. But bathing the children was a real punishment. During our conversation, the owner of the sauna, who turned out to be from the orphanage herself, overheard. She suggested closing the sauna twice a week for special service. The problem was that there was no one to bathe the young children, as the orphanage didn't have enough staff. I agreed to help. Sergei sat there, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. And the lighter he felt, the more he realized how ashamed he was. So ashamed that he didn't even want to look at Karina. At that moment, the door swung open, and the woman who scolded him peered in. Karen, the next group has arrived, and your button is looking for you there, she said. Sergei looked at Karina in surprise, and she, feeling embarrassed, headed towards the door. He followed her. In the vestibule, there were about 10 little children, just as small as the first group Sergei had seen here. One little girl separated from the crowd and rushed towards Karina. Mama Karina, I've been looking for you, she exclaimed. Karina picked up the girl in her arms. I'm here. I didn't go anywhere, she reassured her. Sergei silently left the sauna and headed home. His mood was strange. Just half an hour ago, he was annoyed and angry at his wife for deceiving him. And now he was equally angry at himself, only at himself. Perhaps he behaved in a way that made his wife not want to share her affairs with him. And this little blue-eyed girl hugged Karina as if secretly she was the girl's real mother. Karina came home in the evening. Sergei was sitting on the floor, working on a shelf. She entered the room, sat on the couch, and asked, Are you mad at me? He looked at her in surprise and replied, Mad at you? No, of course not. I just realized once again how kinder and more caring you are compared to me. Stop, you're a man, and men perceive everything differently. Forgive me, Karina. I'm sorry for thinking poorly of you. His wife smiled and said, I'm the one at fault. I kept it a secret. Let's have dinner now. During dinner, Sergei asked about the little girl. Karina immediately brightened up and said, You can't imagine what kind of child she is. Not just a child, but a miracle. Her parents died, and her grandmothers didn't want her. Well, maybe they don't even exist. In any case, she's such a clever, affectionate girl, and she never gets down. The whole evening, Sergei listened with a smile to Nastika's mischief and funny remarks. It seemed like she could talk endlessly. When they lay down, his wife smiled. I've overwhelmed you with stories about the little girl. But why was I so interested to listen? Sergei said. However, he stumbled for a second. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking nonsense. Of course, I'll say no, but if you have such an attachment to her, maybe we should consider taking her in. He felt his wife freeze. He was about to say that he didn't mean it seriously, that she shouldn't be upset. But Karina suddenly hugged him so tightly that he almost choked. I was even afraid to ask you about it. You're the most wonderful, she said. Not much time passed, and Sergei rushed home even faster. Now, not just one loving heart was waiting for him, but two. He quickly forgot that Nastya wasn't his biological child. It felt as though she had been with them since birth, and he and Karina were her true parents. If you enjoyed the story, please support me by clicking the thumbs up button. It's just one action for you, but it means a lot to me. All the best.